At my daughter's beach wedding, her fiancé smirked, "Pay $50,000 for this luxury or disappear forever." I blinked. My daughter added, "Or enjoy solitude in an old age home." I sipped my champagne, smiled, and whispered, "You forgot one thing." Their faces drained of color. Moments later, chaos erupted, and I hadn't lifted a finger. "You forgot one thing." The words slipped from my lips like velvet-wrapped daggers, barely audible above the rhythmic crash of waves along the Cape Cod shoreline. The sunset caught in my champagne glass as I raised it to my lips, maintaining eye contact with my daughter and her new husband. I hadn't planned to speak yet, but seeing Rebecca's carefully made-up face shift from cold disdain to fleeting doubt gave me an unexpected flicker of satisfaction. Just 3 hours earlier, I had arrived at the Ocean View Resort, alone. My taxi pulled up to the grand entrance, where valet attendants in crisp white uniforms helped guests from luxury cars. Sensing my hesitation, the driver offered an encouraging smile. "Beautiful place for a wedding," he said, helping me with my single overnight bag. I had managed, smoothing down my department store dress, the nicest one I owned. A pale blue number I'd saved for over 6 months. Setting aside every tip I earned, my daughter was getting married. The pride in that thought faltered as I stepped onto the manicured grounds. White chairs, lavish floral arrangements, and crystal glasses glinting in the sunlight faced the ocean. Guests in designer dresses mingled effortlessly, their laughter mingling with the tinkling of champagne flutes worth more than my weekly grocery budget. A tall woman with flawless skin glanced at me, her eyes scanning from face to sensible heels, lingering briefly on my handbag. Not designer, but the best I could afford. Her slight grimace told me everything before she dismissed me silently. I clutched my invitation tighter, scanning for my daughter. Rebecca had insisted I arrive early to help with last-minute details. Yet no one seemed to be expecting me. After 15 minutes of awkward wandering, I spotted her in a white silk robe, surrounded by bridesmaids in a secluded garden corner. "Mom, you're late," she said, barely looking up from her phone. Her voice carried the subtle edge it had developed in college. "Everyone's been asking where you were," she added. A lie. No one had asked. "The ceremony starts in 2 hours," she continued, finally meeting my eyes. "Your dress is fine. Just try not to embarrass us today, okay?" The words stung. This wasn't new territory. I nodded, forcing a smile as she instructed a coordinator to show me to my seat. "For the ceremony?" I asked, confused. "For the reception," Rebecca clarified with a sigh, suggesting I was being slow. "Table 19, back corner, away from family photos." The coordinator, a young woman with kind eyes, offered a sympathetic glance as she led me away. "Would you like something to drink while you wait, Mrs. Foster?" "Yes, water please," I replied automatically. 2 hours later, I watched my beautiful daughter walk down the aisle toward David Harrington, scion of a Boston real estate empire. Rebecca was radiant in a designer gown costing more than 3 months of my rent. I'd offered to help pay for it. She laughed. "Mom, you couldn't afford the veil, let alone the gown." During the ceremony, I sat alone in the second-to-last row, surrounded by distant acquaintances who ignored me. The mother of the bride. I didn't cry. Something had hardened inside me over months of subtle rejection. At the cocktail hour, David approached, 2 champagne flutes in hand. Initially, I felt a flicker of hope, perhaps a gesture of connection. "Grace," he said, his practiced smile never reaching his eyes. "Enjoying yourself?" "It sets a beautiful wedding," I answered cautiously, taking the glass. "You and Rebecca must be very happy." "We are," he replied, scanning the crowd. "Though their cest's still the matter of your contribution." I froze, the glass halfway to my lips. "My contribution?" "Yes," he continued smoothly. "Rebecca mentioned you sit help with the final wedding costs. 50,000 should cover it." The champagne turned bitter in my mouth. $50,000? David, I don't have that kind of money. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes hardened. Grace, let's be honest. We accommodated your situation, but appearances matter. Rebecca embarrassed enough by your background. The least you could do is compensate for the inconvenience. Inconvenience, I repeated, stunned. There you two are. Rebecca appeared beside him, glowing in the sunset. Mom, has David told you about our arrangement? He mentioned $50,000, I said quietly. It's not much considering what we've done for you, she whispered. We invited you despite David's parents' reservations. We gave you a seat at the reception. If you can't contribute financially, perhaps we should part ways. There's a lovely retirement community in Arizona where you wouldn't bother anyone. Your choice. Pay for the luxury of being in our lives, or vanish forever. It's simple. I looked at them, my daughter and her husband, addressing me like royalty, addressing a servant. 18 years of sacrifice, 3 jobs at once to put her through college, poured into her boutique, all forgotten. Something settled inside me. I sipped my champagne, letting the moment stretch, and whispered, "You forgot one thing." The fear in their eyes was unmistakable. They hadn't expected defiance. "Excuse me," I said, rising gracefully. "I need to powder my nose." I walked away, heels clicking on polished stone, their eyes boring into my back, unaware of what I had been preparing for months. The chaos would be entirely of their making, and I wouldn't lift a finger. As I walked toward the main building, memories surfaced, not of this wedding day, but of a night 18 years ago, when I made the most important decision of my life. Rain pounded our small Boston apartment windows. Tom had finally fallen asleep after another rage, his snores echoing like distant thunder. 4-year-old Rebecca watched silently from the hallway, clutching her rabbit. That night I packed essentials into a duffel bag. Rebecca's favorite clothes, her rabbit, our passports, and emergency cash, hidden in a hollowed-out Pride and Prejudice. $237, all I'd saved. Lifting sleeping Rebecca, she asked, "Are we going on an adventure, Mommy?" "Yes, baby," I whispered, steady despite fear. The biggest adventure. We disappeared into the rainy night, boarding the last bus to Dorchester, staying with a friend until I could figure things out. 2 weeks later, we moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment. The building smelled of cabbage and smoke. The pull-out couch became my bed for 7 years. Days blurred between 10-hour diner shifts, answering phones at a dental office, and cleaning houses. Exhaustion was constant, but so were golden moments. I remember Rebecca's first reading success. The cat sat on the mat. "I did it, Mommy. I read it all by myself." Her eyes shone with pride, and I meant every word when I said, "You're the smartest girl in the world." We celebrated milestones with $12.99 cupcakes, carefully divided over days. I promised her opportunities I never had: college, beautiful clothes, financial security, and I kept that promise, working extra shifts, saving every dollar. When she got into Boston University, I wept tears of pride and panic. I took on more shifts, cleaned more houses, exhaustion hid behind smiles and freshly dyed hair. Her freshman and sophomore years were golden. Weekend visits, long talks about her classes and dreams. By junior year, she came home less, often distracted by her phone. Embarrassment emerged subtly, with friends from wealthier backgrounds. I swallowed the hurt, prioritizing her success over my feelings. Rebecca graduated with honors. I applauded louder than anyone, hands raw from extra shifts, the skin cracked from cleaning chemicals. 2 weeks later, she called at 11:43 p.m. "Mom, I found it, my dream. A vacant storefront in Beacon Hill. I can open a boutique. I've started contacting designers, but I need startup capital first and last month's rent. Security deposit, renovations, inventory, marketing. I don't have the money. No bank will lend to me. Mom, how much do you have?" There was a pause. $97,000, she whispered. The figure might as well have been $1 million. It was far beyond what I had in my savings account. But there was my retirement fund. Modest by most standards, yet built consistently over 18 years. It was everything I had saved for my future. I'll have it for you by Monday, I promised Rebecca. Her gasp was audible. Mom, that SEP's everything you have. Not everything, I said softly. I have you. 3 days later, I sat in the office of Sarah Miller, my high school friend, now a paralegal at a respected Boston law firm. Years ago, I had sheltered her for 3 months during a difficult divorce. Are you absolutely certain about this, Grace? Sarah asked, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed the paperwork to liquidate my retirement account. This is every penny you saved. I is at tame certain, I replied. Sarah pressed her lips into a thin line. Then we set her doing it my way. She produced additional documents. As a bro is in drawing up partnership papers. You maintained 51% silent ownership. Rebecca will be the public face, but you have legal protection. I started to protest, but she raised a hand. This isn't set just about protecting you, Grace. It protects Rebecca too. What if the business fails? Liability issues? This structure safeguards both of you. Reluctantly, I agreed, never intending to exercise control over Rebecca's dream. When we presented the paperwork, she signed without fully reading it, too excited about securing the storefront to notice the legal details. 3 months later, Rebecca's boutique opened. The grand opening was modest. A small cheese platter, inexpensive champagne, and handwritten invitations to her network. I stood quietly in the background, watching my daughter greet customers with natural charm, presenting her carefully curated inventory with genuine passion. The boutique struggled initially. I quietly contributed from my savings when rent was due, never mentioning the extra support. Rebecca worked 14-hour days, designing window displays, negotiating with vendors, building relationships one sale at a time. Then came a turning point. Alyssa, Rebecca's college friend, the one who had called our apartment cozy, had become a social media influencer. One afternoon, she tried on a striking blue dress Rebecca sourced from a Brooklyn designer and posted a photo on Instagram. By morning, it had gone viral. By afternoon, a line had formed outside the store. By week's end, Rebecca had sold nearly all her inventory, scrambling to reorder. The boutique became a destination for Boston's young professionals. Local magazines featured it as a hidden gem. Social media influencers continued to amplify the buzz. Within 6 months, Rebecca sought to expand into the adjacent space. I watched with overwhelming pride. My daughter, my brilliant, hard-working daughter, was succeeding beyond anything I had imagined when we fled that night years ago. I deliberately stayed away during business hours, visiting only after closing to help with restocking or accounting. Rebecca never asked me to stay away. It was my choice, understanding that my appearance in discount clothes and worn hands might clash with the boutique's upscale image. You should come by during the day sometime, Rebecca occasionally suggested, but her tone lacked conviction. Your world now, not mine, I replied lightly. Seeing the results was enough for me. The first sting came about a year later. I had stopped by earlier than usual one evening, planning to surprise Rebecca with dinner. The boutique was still open. Customers browsed the new fall collection. I slipped in quietly, standing near a rack of cashmere sweaters. A well-dressed woman chatted with Rebecca near the register. Youssef created something special here, she said. How did you build such a perfect boutique right out of college? I smiled, expecting Rebecca to acknowledge our partnership, the years of sacrifice that made this possible. Instead, she tossed her hair back and said confidently, I built this business from nothing. Hard work, determination, and a clear vision. Nobody handed me anything. I made it happen through pure grit. The words hit like blows. Nobody handed me anything. I built this from nothing. In that moment, standing among expensive clothes purchased with my retirement fund, I felt invisible, erased from my daughter's success story. The boutique that had symbolized our journey together was now solely hers. I slipped out quietly, dinner forgotten. Outside, leaning against the brick wall, I breathed in the cool evening air, trying to rationalize the hurt. This was what I had wanted, wasn't it? For Rebecca to stand on her own. But as I walked home, something shifted. It wasn't just her claiming sole credit, it was that she genuinely believed it. After discovering this revisionist history, I maintained distance from operations, protecting myself while ensuring the business thrived. I reviewed financial statements, processed invoices, and attended to paperwork quietly, becoming a ghost in Rebecca's success story. Then came an invitation that caught me off guard. Mom, the Boston Chamber of Commerce is hosting their annual Small Business Gala next Thursday, Rebecca announced during a rare dinner. I felt being recognized as an entrepreneur under 30 and need a +1. Would you come? Surprise must have shown on my face. She added quickly. The other option is Alyssa, but people might think we're a couple. She laughed lightly. I'd love to come, I said, hiding my eagerness. Perhaps this was her way of reconnecting. The night of the gala, I splurged on a hair appointment and wore my best clearance Nordstrom rack dress. Rebecca gave me an appraising look. You look nice, Mom. Very appropriate. At the elegant downtown ballroom, Rebecca transformed into someone I barely recognized. Confident, charming, working the room effortlessly. I stayed nearby, sipping sparkling water, smiling politely. During her acceptance speech, she again omitted any mention of my involvement. The sting was familiar this time, more ache than shock. Impressive young woman, a deep voice beside me said. I turned to a strikingly handsome man, early 30s, confident, intelligent. Thank you, I replied. She sips my daughter. David Harrington, he said, extending a hand. Harrington Development Group. The name rang bells. Boston's old money real estate family. Grace Foster, I responded. His eyes quickly assessed my dress, shoes, and modest jewelry before asking, "And what do you do, Miss Foster?" "I'm in the service industry," I said vaguely. Knowing ambiguity served me better than listing multiple working-class jobs. Rebecca appeared at my side. "Mom, I've been looking everywhere for you." Her attention shifted to David instantly. Chemistry sparked between them. "David Harrington," he said, animatedly. "Rebecca Foster." She extended her hand gracefully. "Rebecca Sepp's closet." David complimented her accomplishments, and once again I became invisible, a prop in their story. He smoothly redirected the conversation, securing her phone number and a promise to tour her boutique. 3 days later, their first date. 2 weeks later, inseparable. Their whirlwind romance escalated quickly. Rebecca's calls became rarer. Our dinners were rescheduled for David's plans. When we did meet, he dominated conversations, focusing on connections and advantages for himself. I began noticing troubling patterns. David showcased Rebecca socially while keeping her separate from his family. He lavished gifts, subtly criticized, and offered unsolicited advice. Every attempt I made to discuss concerns was deflected. "He's just trying to help me succeed," Mom Rebecca would insist defensively. 4 months in, I discovered their engagement via a Facebook post. No call, no notice. A staged photo of Rebecca's hand with a diamond ring, captioned, "I said yes to forever with my soulmate. Future Mrs. Harrington." I stared before calling her, hands shaking. "Were you going to tell me?" "Oh, Mom." "Yes, tonight," she replied, voice high with excitement. "David proposed yesterday. We've been celebrating." "Very sudden," I said. "When you know," she dismissed. Spring wedding, intimate but elegant. The next day, I received a text not meant for me. "Your mom can't be seated with my family at dinner." My heart froze. David had planned to exclude me, and Rebecca offered no defense. Later, A distracting text arrived from her about wedding details. Betrayal sat like ice in my stomach. 2 weeks later, I visited Rebecca's apartment unannounced. She wasn't home, but her laptop was open. I hesitated, then clicked a tab labeled Mom Management. A detailed strategy document outlined how to limit my visibility, schedule unnecessary vendor meetings, and extract maximum financial support while controlling boundaries. The final note highlighted David's comment, full financial support with minimal interference. After the wedding, distance becomes easier. I stepped back, physically ill. This was deliberate, a long-term plan to exploit me before cutting me out. That night, I called Sarah. I need your help, I said. And don't ask questions yet. Whatever you need, she replied. If I activate my majority ownership in Rebecca's closet, what does that mean? I asked. Silence for 3 beats. You could initiate a full audit, freeze assets, review contracts, and potentially assume operational control. Grace, what steps happening? I'm setting up a contingency plan, I said, voice steadier than I felt. One I hope never to use. For the first time in 22 years, I needed to put myself first. In the weeks before the wedding, Sarah and I prepared meticulously, gathering financial records, documenting unauthorized investor meetings, and compiling evidence of funds being diverted. We discovered David had advised Rebecca to restructure the business in ways that would dilute my ownership to nothing shortly after the wedding. Are you sure you want to do this? Sarah asked during our final meeting, 3 days before the ceremony. Once we initiate this, there's no turning back. I stared at the stack of manila envelopes on the dining table, each containing legal notices and irrefutable evidence prepared for different recipients. I'm not doing anything yet, I corrected Sarah. I'm just making sure everything is ready. And what sets the trigger? She asked. What makes you press the button? I thought about the years of sacrifice, the gradual erosion of respect, the calculated mom management strategy, and now the wedding ultimatum. I'll know when it happens, I said quietly. The confrontation on the beach, their demand for $50,000 or permanent exclusion, confirmed it. My daughter and her husband saw me only as a resource to exploit. When I whispered, "You forgot one thing," and saw fear flash across their faces, I knew exactly what needed to happen. After excusing myself to powder my nose, I walked past the resort bathrooms, following the wooden boardwalk to a secluded alcove between sand dunes. I sat on a weathered bench facing the ocean. The sunset painted the water in amber and gold, a serene contrast to the chaos I just endured. My hands were steady as I composed a simple text to Sarah: "Sandcastle time." 3 dots appeared almost immediately, followed by her reply. "Understood. Packages delivering now. Legal team standing by. Are you okay?" "I will be," I typed back. I remained on the bench for exactly 7 minutes, breathing deeply and saying goodbye to the dream of the relationship I had hoped for with Rebecca. Then I slipped my phone back into my purse and returned to the reception, taking a circuitous route to observe without being seen. The wedding coordinator approached David Sepp's parents at their prominent table near the dance floor, handing them a sealed envelope. "This was delivered for you, Mr. and Mrs. Harrington." Similar scenes played out across the venue. Staff discreetly delivered identical envelopes to boutique investors David had secretly involved without my knowledge or consent. Confusion quickly turned to concern as documents were opened and examined. David's father was the first to react, his face flushing as he stood abruptly, napkin falling forgotten. He scanned the room, locating his son near the bar, and strode purposefully toward him. At the same time, a synchronized series of electronic alerts chimed throughout the venue. Rebecca's business email sent automated notifications to everyone connected to the boutique. The messages, prepared by Sarah's team, announced an immediate company audit, asset freeze, and suspension of all activities pending investigation of financial irregularities. I stepped from my vantage point, moving along the perimeter. David was now engaged in an intense whispered argument with his father, who jabbed repeatedly at the documents. Rebecca stood frozen, her makeup unable to mask growing panic. Spotting me, she rushed over. "Mom, what SEP's happening? Everyone SEP's getting these crazy emails about the boutique." "Not crazy," I corrected calmly. "Accurate. I SEP'm exercising my rights as majority owner." David appeared at her side, his practiced charm gone. "What have you done?" he hissed. "I Sester protected my investment," I replied evenly. "Did you really think I wouldn't discover your plans to cut me out? The unauthorized investors, the diverted funds." Rebecca paled. "We can explain," she stammered. "It was temporary, to build capital for expansion into David SEP's side project." I finished for her. The South End development that received $200,000 from Rebecca's closet reserves without my knowledge or approval. David SEP's eyes darted nervously toward his parents, still reviewing the documents. "You have no idea what you SEP'd done. My family has connections you can SEP'd imagine." "Is that why your father looks ready to disown you right now?" I asked, nodding toward him. "I wonder how he feels about his son using a small boutique as a personal piggy bank." The horror on their faces confirmed my assessment. They had underestimated me completely, seeing only what they wanted, an aging woman with working-class roots who could be exploited. "Mom," Rebecca whispered, tears streaking her carefully applied makeup, "you have to fix this. Please, everything we worked for will be destroyed. Everything I sacrificed for, everything I built that you claimed as your achievement," I corrected gently. Rebecca reached for my arm, her diamond engagement ring catching the light. "I step your daughter, you can do this to me." For a moment, my resolve wavered. The instinct to protect, to shield, to sacrifice still lingered, but I remembered the spreadsheet, the casual cruelty, the ultimatum over champagne flutes. "I already did," I said softly. "You showed me exactly who you are, and what I step worth to you. I simply believed you." David's phone rang, his father calling. Rebecca's phone chimed with more legal alerts. The elegant reception was devolving into clusters of urgent conversations. "We can offer more than $50,000. David bargained desperately. "Double, triple, whatever you want." I shook my head. It was never about money. As I turned to leave, Rebecca pleaded once more. "Mom, tell me how to fix this." I paused, looking back at her designer wedding dress figure. "You can sit," I said simply. "Some things, once broken, stay broken." I walked away with unhurried dignity through the chaos. Staff stepped aside respectfully, sensing I was not to be stopped. At the edge of the property, I slipped off my uncomfortable heels, carrying them as I walked onto the public beach, stretching for miles. The setting sun painted my path in gold. Each step was lighter than the last. For the first time in decades, I was free from thankless sacrifice, from being valued only for what I could provide. 3 miles down the beach, Sarah waited in her car, a new future ahead, a small boutique of my own in a quieter part of town, for women who valued substance over status, not a replacement for what I lost, but something entirely new just for me. I never looked back at the resort or the chaos left behind. I had given Rebecca everything. Now finally, it was my turn. If this story of sweet revenge had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button. My favorite part, when Grace whispered, "You forgot one thing at the beach wedding," knowing her perfectly planned strategy was about to unfold. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss more thrilling stories.